Dennis Sperling drops yet another clip where he's describing the legacy of one Marcus Garvey, the scamming history of Marcus Garvey way back in the day, some of the stuff that he was doing and how he was actually dividing the black community instead of trying to bring them together under the umbrella of Pan-Africanism and repatriation.
How? Hold on, bro. How?
So we're going to get into all that because there's some similarities between him and, of course, Umar Johnson. Some of y'all might not know about, so I'm going to connect the dots, if you will. So if you haven't done so already, because I know you haven't done it yet, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to further contribute to the channel if you wish. Hit that button down below to join this channel, join the channel membership, okay? Hit that hype button. That would help me out greatly in the algorithm. It's a great tool. If you would, go down there and do that right now, please. And as always, like Umar Johnson always says, hit the Cash App, $ Mr. Normie. So let's listen to one Dennis Sperling give a great history lesson on one Marcus Garvey.
Garvey's global plan, this Pan-African vision, and this Back to Africa program was seen as politically and emotionally reckless. Now, again, the working class, poor black people liked him. All right, they like the pride, they like the racial confidence that this short black Jamaican had, right? The global identity, yeah, it's bigger than us. You know, we bigger than us, right? They like the sense of mass power, and they liked him. Remember, these country folk coming up out the South, right? They liked him. You see what I'm saying? These snooty black people trying to tell us to wear suits and eat with our mouths closed, and this little loudmouth Jamaican dude with the pompadour on his head, we liked him.
Now, again, similarities between Marcus Garvey and Umar Johnson, and a lot of other black leaders to Dennis Sperling's credit. They try to play on, I don't want to say the ignorance, but the hope and the desperation of the, lower class, or dare I say uneducated black individual, okay? They're playing on stereotypes of racism. They're playing on stereotypes of, these more educated black people are, they're just trying to tell us what to do, right? They're not really for us. And what Umar Johnson called these people, he calls them, shucking and driving. And a lot of other black people that don't know any better do the same thing. They call them shucking and driving. They shoe shining. They're tools of white supremacy, or as Umar Johnson would call them, his famous phrase or word he likes to call them, he calls you a raccoon, right? These are things that other black people, the labels they put on more educated black people when they don't understand the vision that they're trying to put forth, right? Let's continue.
Okay. That part is true. We shouldn't erase that. He was charismatic, like most Jamaicans. Shout out to the yard man, very Jamaican. Come up here, just very charismatic. Got it. Okay. But see, the other part of the story is that Garvey played on black Americans' low self-esteem and emotional need to be wanted and loved. He had good game. He needed more than poor workers and emotional followers, though. If he was going to build his African dream, he needed the black professional class, that same group of talented tenths, the doctors, the lawyers, the teachers, the engineers, the business owners, the bankers, the organizers, the administrators, the farmers, the trained institution builders to come on along with him. He needed that talented tenth, and they rejected him.
One more time. Now let's go here. Umar Johnson has also been rejected by the talented individuals in the black community, the celebrities, the athletes, some of your famous black politicians. They don't rock with Umar. They haven't donated to his school. They don't have him on their platforms and panels and things like that. Again, the height of Umar Johnson's fame, I guess, would be the Breakfast Club. And before that, it was Roland Martin, right? No other black individual of supreme prominence has had him on their platform. But he can do the podcast on YouTube. He can do Chop by T. He can do What's Up There podcast. He can do Art of Dialogue and things like that, which they get numbers. But these people aren't prominent in the bourgeoisie and the boule of the black community, if you will, okay? The higher society of the black community. Umar Johnson not recognized in those spaces, right? And because of that, Umar Johnson can't get this school and stuff off the ground either, because he doesn't have the backing of the upper class, the LeBron James of the world, the other people that's built schools, okay, that's actually built, and even that haven't built a school, if they've contributed to black excellence. Umar Johnson does not have the backing of those people. Because of that, he has beef with all of them. He's talked bad about all of them. And he continues to play on the suffering and the hopes of the black community, especially the single mother.
and his goofy plan. They probably knew he was stealing money in the first place, right? We are not going to help you build a nation in Africa, sir. We're going to stay right here. They thought the idea was bad. They thought it was unrealistic. And see, they already knew about this Liberian. Who knows about what black people did when we went back to Liberia, which wasn't even Liberia. We went back to Africa. Did y'all know about that? We went to Africa in the 1820s and enslaved the Africans. Did y'all know we did that? We went back to Africa. White folk gave us tools and money, and we went to Africa in 1820s and enslaved Africans. Damn, did y'all know that? I want you to look up Liberia right now. They just got us up out of there in 1986. Did y'all know we went to Africa and enslaved Africans? That's hard to listen to, huh? We supposed to be victims. I know. Praise God. Somebody type praise Moses in the chat room. We went to Africa.
Now, again, do your research on that, by the way. I did, and that's quite interesting, if you will. But again, Umar Johnson, his mission of repatriation, his mission of Pan-Africanism, everybody going back to Africa, we're all one black, community, whether we're in America or we're in Africa or whether we're in the UK or Europe, we're all black people, right? Which a lot of us have African descendants, but are we the same at this point in culture, in time? We are not, all right? The people that are still truly African are the ones that are in Africa. We have African descendants and African roots, right? But at this point, our lifestyle, our way of life, our culture, our history stops once we came off the slave ship into America. That's where our African lineage pretty much stops at that point, okay? Because it's been taught out of us, it's been bred out of us, it's been, all kind of stuff. We have our own, but again, Umar Johnson wants us to repatriate back to Africa. And for the Pan-Africanists, that's a great idea. For the Black Americans here, the FBA or ADOS, whatever term or what you want to put to it, DAFA for Umar Johnson. Well, we feel like we should continue to grow our culture right here because at this point, this is our home.
The white folks said, "Look, we're going to put y'all on a boat, and we're going to carve out a piece of land, and we're going. You can call it. What do you want to call it? Come, Tom. What do you want to call? Liberia. There you go. That's a great name. Liberty. Okay, so we'll send you over there.
Liberty.
You can come up with your constitution. The Liberian constitution looked just like the American constitution. We went over there. We dressed and had our own stuff, guns, everything. And there was already some Africans there. Little local Africans, they over there. Over there doing their thing. We came back. Oh my God. Mind you, we just came from America. It's 1820. We going through hell over here. We went over there. We separated ourselves for them, had them working for us. And by the time, I think it was 1940, we had enslaved them on a rubber plantation. We had them out there doing slave work. Get out there. This is what we did. Shameful. This is what we did. We damn slave owners.
That's crazy work right there, ain't it? That's crazy. How, the plan to send us back to Africa to try to, blend us in back with African culture. And we ended up taking the culture or the, the bad parts of, the white culture, the Anglo-Saxon, if you will. We enslaved our own people. We're again, do we have African ancestry? Of course we do. That cannot be denied. However, our ways and mannerisms and culture and everything else is not African anymore. No, it's not.
That's what foundational Black America. I'm just saying, it's the truth. Okay, so I'm just saying. But the bottom line is, it was a failed experiment. And Garvey was trying to take his boat over there to Liberia. He was trying to go to Liberia. It's 100 years later. And he said, yeah, we're going to buy some land from Liberia. And the Liberian said, nah, we ain't going to sell you the land. And they end up selling it to this rubber company. So he didn't get the boat. He didn't get the land. All right. It just wasn't going to work out. And the ruling caste was like, nah, man, we ain't fooling with you, dog. They already got people over there. They got conflicts on the land because they were fighting too. Right. And, that earlier colonization and repatriation effort to Africa had already shown that moving Black Americans out of the United States, it wasn't simple. You're going to have to deal with disease, problems, cultural conflicts. You got these political struggles and you got these land disputes and just interference from the colonies. So from the perspective of the talented 10th, Garvey was asking Black America to risk everything and had no guarantees of success. And this is why many of them saw Garvey as a scamming con man hustler. And to the talented 10th, it looked like money he got out of the Black people in America that could have been used to strengthen our own infrastructure inside America.
That's right. I say again, Marcus Garvey, raised over $600,000 during that time. And I think he said 19, 20, 21, 22, something like that, which in today's time would equal almost up to $11-12 million. See what I mean? So, and they thought back then, just like we think about Umar Johnson, you raised all that money, you didn't get the repatriation together, you didn't have black people en masse moving back to Africa. The ships that you said was on your brochure, you didn't even own, they weren't yours. You know what I mean? Like it was all a scam. And we're trying to figure out, are you doing the right thing for the wrong reason, or are you doing the wrong thing for the right reason? You know what I mean? Either way, it looks like a scam because of how much money you raised and the lack of progress that you have. Same with Umar Johnson.
And the real source of the fight, Garvey wasn't just calmly disagreeing with the talented 10. He got loud. He was angry because they wouldn't come along with him. He needed that black professional class and to validate his movement and fund his movement and staff his movement and help fund his African vision. And when he rejected the plan, he lashed out and he began attacking the black professional class and sellouts, race traders, elitists, social climbers, and tools of white power.
What does Umar Johnson do? Just like I said a few moments ago, the upper class black American does not rock with Umar Johnson's vision, okay? Because they see it as scamming, they see it as not working. It's, as Dennis Sperling would say, reckless. It's not having a lot of forethought, it doesn't have a lot of planning to it. It's just we should do this because of our ancestry, right? That's it. That we should bring all Africans back together under one umbrella, under one country, under one land. It's not that simple, especially not today in 2026. Maybe back then when we were a couple of decades into slavery, but now in 2026, you want to bring everybody back to Africa, have everybody thinking the same, have the same type of mission and message. It's not going to work. Because of that, what does Umar Johnson call all these black celebrities? He insults them every chance he gets, okay? And he has the common folk like myself, those normie black folks, he has us thinking that these black celebrities, well, they're just tools of white supremacy. They're just, further capitalists. They left us behind. They don't care about us and things like that. Which some of them have actually tried to pull us back up. Some of them try to pull you up, Umar Johnson, but you have so much controversy with women. You have so much controversy with the school. You haven't been transparent with your money. Why would they back you at the expense of their own personal and brand integrity?
You understand what I'm saying? This man took what he had something called the Negro World, which I basically guess a publication, a newspaper, and his mass platform to turn working class people, them black people that just came up from the South, that was tired of these bougie black people telling them what to do and how to act. Okay, the same group, right? Garvey had them, and he was saying, "See, I told you, they think they're better than us. They're bougie, they're boule. Look at these fraternities and sororities they're in." So instead of treating the disagreement as a serious strategic debate over where black Americans should build power, he made it personal. In fact, he even made it racial and class-based and emotional. See, Garvey, first of all, understand that Garvey is from Jamaica. So his African world, his worldview was already different than black America. He came up here anyway. So him going from Jamaica to America to Africa was just another move to another country. Black Americans had been here. We hadn't gone anywhere, okay? So, but bottom line is, he also he leaned on the color division because a lot of the lights, he made it a light skin, dark skin issue, right? It was already present in black life, but Garvey weaponized it. In other words, there was already issues between black people, successful black people, and poor black people, or working class black people, light skin and dark. But Garvey came through and made it work. This is the effect. This is why we still talk about this man.
Again, the division, the divide that Marcus Garvey put in the black community at that time is the same thing that Umar Johnson does today. Okay. And by the way, yes, he tries to bring people together, mainly black women, but he's only doing that for his own desires, right? When he's always talking about, the caramel queens and the chocolate queens and the cosmopolitan queens and the vanilla queens and he does that only to inflate the ego of black women, so that way they will, feeding their ego, so that way they'll like him more. You see what I mean? And you don't have to do that. But Umar Johnson, he inflates the ego of these black women, especially single mothers, to keep them on his team because they're the one that's funding him in the hopes of teaching their children. So we have, colorism. Of course, he doesn't like the freaking the talented black people of society. And so he plays on the working class, the lower class, the normies like myself and others, the hope that, he will bring up the black community, bring all of us together. I mean, it all sounds great, but it's way more complicated. Now, you're better off saying, you know what, hey, Africans in Africa, y'all good? Can we help y'all out? No. Okay, what about y'all in the UK? Can we help y'all out? Yeah, we can have our own cultures, but be separate. I mean, let's continue.
Okay, and we, time has kind of washed it clean a little bit, but Garvey was not helpful to black life. Garvey weaponized the color line politically. And that kind of color conflict had deep roots in Caribbean societies, including places like Jamaica, where skin shade and class and education and status and colonial hierarchy were tied together in very powerful ways. And Garvey used that resentment against leaders like W.B. Du Bois and other members of the black elite, portraying them as color-struck, light-skinned, upper-class Negroes who look down on dark and poor black people, the ones fresh out the South specifically. And that tactic worked because it connected class resentment, color resentment, working class frustration, but it also poisoned black politics by teaching many regular black people to view educated black people and leadership as racially suspicious rather than strategically necessary. Do y'all hear where this comes? Do you see what I'm saying? Are y'all learning something? You see how it's all started to come? Our institutions got wiped out. Okay. Institutions got wiped out. We don't like the successful people who recognize the game and how to do things in America. Okay. What are we missing? Right?
And you know why? Because there's one side that says, we should change the game the way we can benefit. There's the other side that says, you know what? We need to figure out how to take advantage of the game to work out. The lower class people, they're saying we should just change the game entirely the way we can all, the whole equity versus equality thing, right? Well, the talented 10th or the talented people of the black community says, you know what? Let's figure out how to play the game that's already being established, how we can, maneuver in the game that's already playing, aka the Caucasian world, right? We just figure out how to play the game by the rules and win. Or, try to take advantage of the rules like they do and win. Which you're not going to change the rules because we didn't make the rules, right? we can't change the rules because we didn't create the game, right? So you figure out how to play by the rules or manipulate the rules that's there to your advantage, right? That's what the talented people wanted the lower class people to do. We can bring you up, but you got to do it this way. This is the best way to do it. Well, the lower class doesn't think that way. Social people that believe in socialism, things like that, they figure we should change the game. That's not how it works.
Okay. Now here's the thing, and I'm gonna kind of finish that up, and we're gonna move on to the next one. The talented 10th said, "Nah, we not gonna let this dude do this." They didn't have a term like tether back then, but they had some words for him. But this is the thing. They had this thing called the 8 at the top controversy, and this deepened the split. So in 1923. Okay, keep in mind, this man had already been indicted, right? They'd already found out he took this $600,000/$12 million from these black folks. There ain't no boat, okay?
No boat.
In 1923, you had about
ain't no school. 8
prominent black leaders, including people who were involved in the NAACP and other professional class. They contacted the federal government. They say, look, man, they contacted J. Edgar Hoover himself. They said, look, we need y'all to get Garvey up out of here.
Man. Now, I got to say, it's a cold world out there when young people call on you. But, I mean, if you're not contributing to society, if you're further divide the community, and if you're scamming, I mean, what did you expect? Again, the talented people said, see, you muddying the waters a little too much, man. So we're trying to get things moving. We're trying to actually create a better lane for everybody when you come in here with all this mess and you taking money from the people. So, and you're not even really American, you're Jamaican too. So, hey, you got to go, bruh.
We want him deported back to Jamaica. That's what they literally did, okay? That's what they literally did. Garvey used that as proof that the talented 10th were agents. Somebody type agent in the chat room. Agents of the government and enemies of black liberation. This man has been in the country for 6 years. He got here in 1916, and he already causing all this trouble, okay? But see, the truth is, those black Americans, those black educated Americans are trying to protect the naive, uneducated black masses from this emotional, manipulative, foreign-born con man who had already took $600,000, which was $12 million. This man was a con man, and they could see it. This African-centered dream was just a scam for him. And they didn't want to abandon the house that Black Americans had built. When they refused to do that, he started calling them names: class, color, resentment, to turn the masses on them. And that's one of the reasons Black Americans later developed such a destructive habit by calling successful Black people house N-words and agents and boule and sellouts and agents and tools of white power. And it didn't help that many of them were involved in certain fraternities and sororities. He threw that in there too.
Yeah, sororities, of course, you got to know the Kappas, you got to know the Masons. You have a bunch of different other organizations within within the Black community that if you're in there, you could have certain advantages where other people don't, okay? Yeah. So that probably didn't help. And the fact that they had him deported, he probably did use to his advantage to further discredit the upper class of Black society.
And some of that language came from real historical fight, but that fight left behind a dangerous legacy. A people who needed its talented class was taught to hate it. So they take their skills to places where they're respected. They go to corporations and white law firms and hospitals, universities, government office, and other professional spaces outside the community. And then the community complains that the talented people abandon them. But this creates a cycle. You successful people, they get treated bad, they leave because they're rejected. And the people left behind become resentful because they feel abandoned. And then everybody blames everybody else, and the result is leadership poverty. And then you get a bunch of hustlers and scammers in charge.
Umar, yes. The talented people are not respected. They're not appreciated. They go on to other places. They're pooping and they're resenting them because they left, and now there's a leadership gap. And the leadership gap is filled with degenerates, right? They're filled with scammers like Umar Johnson. They're filled with scammers like Brother Polite. They're filled with scammers. And, well, they're going to play on the hardships of the Black community like all the scammers do. So, shout out to Dennis Spurlin. And again, fair use to Dennis Spurlin. The title of that video was Marcus Garvey's Tethered Legacy. Was he tricked for Black Americans to hate, distrust the talented class? Again, fair use to Dennis Spurlin. Thank you very much for that. Again, if you listen to what Dennis Spurlin is talking about with Marcus Garvey, you can clearly make the connection between Marcus Garvey and one of his greatest mentors and supporters, or I would say followers, Umar Johnson. And with that being said, thank you for attending another episode of the Working Man Podcast. I am your host, Nicholas J. Fury. Let me know what you think about what Dennis Spurlin had to say about Marcus Garvey. Do you believe what Dennis Spurlin had to say about Marcus Garvey? Do you think there is a great connection, or I would say similar pattern of behavior between Marcus Garvey and Umar Johnson? Let me know down in the comment section, and please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell on your way out of the door. I'll see you on the next video.